Never walk bike.
There's literally like no traffic rules here.
Oh no, it's gonna be so loud.
Golden hour. I highly recommend doing this on the first day because it's like a tasting platter for all the foods you could have in Hanoi, and the guide gives really good tips on what to look out for, where the hidden gems are, and even the scams you should be aware of. For the tour we did, it was booked on Airbnb. I'll link it in the comments. All the food was paid for in advance and the tour was pretty flexible. We could eat as much or as little as we wanted. We could tell him what we liked, what we didn't like, and then he'll tailor it to what we want. He kept asking if we were still hungry, and if we were, we could keep going, but I was so full by the fourth stop.
Is there a spoon for this?
Take a spoon. Don't be lazy.
Never walk bike. Go backward like this. Because like Vietnamese people always want to avoid you. So if you walk bike, they can hit you easier. So you have to be fabulous. Okay?
Fabulous.
So go constant speed. Go slow.
This was one of the best tips he gave us, which is how to walk on the roads in Vietnam, because hectic would be an understatement for the roads here. So when you're here, remember to be fabulous. Walk at a constant speed and don't walk backwards. You'll be surprised how effective it is to cross the roads with a billion motorbikes just because you're confident. This is Bear Street. It's a couple of streets filled with food and bars and restaurants. We didn't stop here, but I would recommend it if you're wanting a rowdy night of eating and drinking. For the food tour, we did a total of 6 restaurants and they were all pretty good. Some a little more touristy than others, but most of the spots had a mix of locals and tourists sitting there, so that was a good sign. I know this looks really touristy, but it was one of my favourite things to do in Hanoi, and in my opinion, totally worth looking like a silly tourist for a little bit. Walking on the streets here, I get so stressed out with all the cars. It was overstimulating, but with the bike, you can take in the chaos without having to navigate or watch out for cars.
Honey butter là 60,000. You need to bread hamburger.
For day 1, I recommend walking around old quarters after or before the food tour. We had one of the best banh mi's of our lives. It was just a lady selling it over charcoal fire on the side of the street. We couldn't find her again afterwards, but maybe it was meant to be just a one-time thing. For day 2, I recommend checking out a place called Bun Cha. I'll put the address in the comments. It's kind of internet famous. We've seen a few people mention it in their travel videos. I didn't expect this internet famous restaurant to be tucked away behind this banner. The people were just cooking in the alleyway. The whole place was soaked in the smell of grilled meats and herbs. We're getting a famous Bun Cha. Inconspicuous alleyways.
Five people? So you got 5 right?
This is like Melbourne's hidden bars. Melbourne hidden bars got nothing on. The alleyway felt like it was 100 meters long and people were eating and cooking in this narrow space. I would not be in here if it wasn't for the internet. We later found out why people were sitting in the alleyway, because there's 2 separate restaurants that operate here. So if you wanted to sit in the restaurant, you had to buy a drink from the other restaurant. They did have coffee options, but I went for a morning vet beer. As you'd expect, it's not about the service or atmosphere in these restaurants, but the pure goodness of their food and secret recipes. We sat down and we were given vermicelli straight away. They must have known all we wanted was bun cha at this restaurant famous for bun cha and named bun cha. Not gonna lie, I low-key like not having to choose what to eat. Bun cha is a grilled pork and noodle dish that originated from Hanoi, so we're right at the source. Bun means rice noodles and cha means grilled pork. You dip the noodles into the grilled pork broth. It leans towards the sweeter side but extremely aromatic with all the herbs, and it has a charred taste that leaves you wanting more. So charred. The soup has grilled pork, meatballs, and cabbage in it. You add as much chili and herbs as you want. After breakfast or brunch, I recommend the famous egg coffee. Normally I drink coffee before breakfast, but egg coffee is pretty much a dessert in my opinion. Egg coffee also originated from Hanoi, and of course I had to check out the cafe that created this drink, Cafe Giang. The cafe had a really discreet entrance as well, must be a thing in Hanoi. Once you enter, it's a 3-story building filled with people drinking coffee. Egg coffee has egg yolk, condensed milk, and espresso in it. They mix the yolk with the condensed milk and then pour it on top of the coffee. It's like eating a custard. Oh my god, it's so yum, but it's not a coffee. For dinner, we went to Cha Ka Thang Long. Like all the other famous restaurants in Hanoi, the place does one thing only and they do it really well. The dish is turmeric, fish and dill. They give you all the ingredients and you cook the fish at your table with a gas stove. You get spring rolls and vermicelli as a side. To eat the dish, you literally mix everything that they give you and it's pretty magical. I get why it was filled with people when it was only offering one dish. We were in Hanoi for New Year, so this might be a little bit different from your trip. But if you're into bougie rooftop bars, we went to Lighthouse Rooftop Bar in Old Quarters. For New Year's, they had fireworks lit on the rooftop bar right next to us, and the host was free pouring drinks down everyone's throats. Highly recommend it, although I'm not sure if it'll be as crazy on a regular night. But even if you're just going for the views, it would be very worth it. Because it was New Year's Eve, the streets were so packed that it was almost not walkable. So if you're going for an event like New Year's, you should definitely look into booking a bar or restaurant in advance.
Yo, record. No records.
I love you, man. I love you. For the next day, if you're as hungover as us, a nice pho will be the cure. We went to this Michelin guide pho place. This one had a huge line of people every time we walked past, so we thought we would give it a try, and it delivered. The food was prepared in this kitchen fresh. It's definitely not a fine dining Michelin restaurant, but it had character. After the pho, we randomly walked around Old Quarters. So every street has their like specialties, and you walk down one street and they only sell seafood, and then this one is like only Chinese New Year stuff. Trying to cross the road here is pretty impossible. We then went to Dongshan Market. It wasn't very impressive and a little confusing. I assume it's actually more for wholesalers. Most of the things sold at the market were available on the street stalls. And people sleep on top of their clothes like cats. This is a must visit, the train street. It was more organised than I expected. When we got there, the area was closed off and the cafe looked like it was closed. But we realised you have to be invited into the cafes. To get invited, you stand outside the barriers and look like a tourist. When the cafe owners see you, they'll come and invite you in. Then you can enter the train area. Because there are limited seats at each cafe, I'd recommend checking the train times and getting there early. Once you're in, you're taken to their cafe and you can order drinks or food while you wait for the train to arrive. And the train's gonna come pretty soon. Before the train gets there, the shop owners remove all the chairs and tables so everyone is standing on the side. What did surprise me was that the train drives past really slow, like I could walk faster than the train, but it's so close that if you're one step too far out, you'd get hit. Despite how crowded it was a pretty unique experience, and if this was my first time in Hanoi, I would definitely go there.